People call Jerry Jarrett a wrestling genius, someone who could see the future of the business before anyone else. But at the same time, he had a reputation for being ruthless. For him, wrestling wasn't just a job, it was everything. That kind of obsession builds legacies, but it also destroyed him completely. Want to know exactly what happened? Let's get into it. To lay a background, Jarrett was tied to wrestling from the very start. He was born in 1942. His mom, Christine Jarrett, worked for promoters in Nashville, selling tickets at shows. So young Jerry grew up inside the wrestling world. By the time he was 7, he was selling programs to fans. At 14, he already had a license so he could drive and help promote events. He did try a normal job as a purchasing agent for a while, but it didn't stick. Wrestling kept pulling him back. He came back as an office worker, then a referee, and finally stepped into the ring himself. He wasn't just some filler wrestler either. He teamed up with his trainer and friend Tojo Yamamoto. Together they won the NWA Southern Tag Team titles 16 times. That mix of being in the ring, working behind the scenes, and promoting shows gave Jerry a full view of the business. It's what made people start calling him a mastermind later on. Jerry Jarrett's career changed in 1977. He had been working for Nick Gulas for years, but they argued and could not work together anymore. Jerry made a brave choice. Instead of staying, he started his own wrestling promotion. He called it the Continental Wrestling Association, or CWA. He was not alone in this. His mother supported him, and his partner Jerry Lawler stood by him. With their help, the CWA grew into something special. In Memphis, Monday nights at the Mid-South Coliseum became the biggest night of the week. The building held more than 11,000 people, and when the stories were strong, every seat was filled. Jerry was smart in the way he ran his business. At the time, most wrestling promoters had to pay television stations just to get their shows on the air. Jerry turned that around. His show was so popular that the television station paid him instead. This meant television was no longer a cost, it was income. With that money coming in, Jerry focused on making the shows better. He did not treat television as just an advertisement for live matches. He made the weekly program exciting, full of action, drama, and surprises. People tuned in because they did not want to miss what would happen next. This idea later became the model for modern shows like WWE Raw and AEW Dynamite. Jerry also had a gift for creativity. He loved mixing wrestling with drama and storytelling. He built rivalries that felt real and left fans wanting more. He also had a good eye for talent. He saw something special in Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson and put them together as the Rock and Roll Express. They became one of the most popular tag teams of all time and changed tag team wrestling for years to come. Jerry also played a part in the rise of Hulk Hogan. When a young Terry Bollea came through Memphis, Jerry suggested the name the Hulk. That small idea grew into one of the most famous wrestling names in history. Jerry always thought about the future. He encouraged promoters to give younger wrestlers opportunities. He wanted wrestling to appeal not only to longtime fans, but also to women and children. He saw that the audience was changing, and he wanted wrestling to change with it. By the late 1980s, wrestling was different. Vince McMahon and the WWF were taking control of the business nationwide. Jerry tried to keep up by merging the CWA with world-class championship wrestling in Dallas. Together, they created the USWA. His dream was to turn it into a national company that could stand against the WWF. For a time it worked, and Memphis wrestling stayed strong. But the WWF was too powerful. In 1997, Jerry sold his share of the USWA to Jerry Lawler. That was the end of his time as a promoter. Then, in 2002, wrestling felt empty. WCW and ECW, the two biggest rivals to WWE, had closed down. For the first time in years, there was no other big company for fans to watch. Jerry Jarrett saw this gap and thought maybe he and his son Jeff could fill it. Together, they started a new promotion called Total Nonstop Action, or TNA for short. The idea came from Jeff. He wanted to be back in wrestling, but not in the same way his father had lived it. Jeff had grown up watching Jerry run shows week after week, traveling from town to town, always on the road, always working. Jeff didn't want that life. He told his father he wanted wrestling to be fun again. His idea was to do one weekly pay-per-view show. Fans could buy it like they bought boxing or UFC. No long tours, no constant travel, just one big show every week. Jerry liked the idea and agreed to help. At first there was excitement. They had energy, they had talent, and they had a fresh concept. But behind the scenes, things started to break. Jerry and Jeff had very different ideas about what wrestling should be. The biggest fight between them came when Jeff brought in Vince Russo. Russo had worked for WWE during its wildest years and had also written for WCW. He loved fast, shocking storylines. He liked surprise swerves, edgy plots, and television that felt chaotic. Jeff thought Russo was perfect. He believed that fans in the 2000s wanted that style. Jerry hated it. He came from Memphis, where wrestling was simple and emotional. The stories were clear. The good guy fought the bad guy, and the crowd felt every second of it. That was how you sold tickets and kept fans coming back. Russo's ideas to Jerry were messy and sleazy. He once said reading Russo's scripts was like reading a book written by someone on drugs. Russo didn't stay quiet either. He fired back, and soon the argument was personal. The fight between Jerry and Jeff was really a fight between two eras. Jerry was holding on to the Memphis way, the old school way. Jeff was chasing the style of the Attitude Era, where fans expected wild twists and reality-based drama. By 2005, Jerry was gone from the company. He left TNA, and even worse, he and his son stopped speaking. For years, their relationship was broken. Jerry later said he had no idea how deeply the fight had scarred Jeff. It took a full decade before father and son finally sat down and made peace in 2015. This wasn't the first time Jerry had stood firm on tradition. Back in 1996, at Madison Square Garden, 4 WWF wrestlers, Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Triple H, hugged in the ring after a match. The fans cheered, but to Jerry, this was one of the worst things that could happen. The moment, which fans later called the curtain call, broke the biggest rule of wrestling. It showed that the rivalries were not real. Jerry was furious. He said if he had been in charge, he would have fired them all. For him, this wasn't just a matter of respect. It was about the very heart of the business. His whole career had been built on making fans believe. If wrestlers stopped protecting the illusion, then why would people pay to see them fight? To Jerry, the curtain call wasn't just breaking character, it was destroying the product. That's what made him so different from Vince McMahon. Vince wanted wrestling to become sports entertainment. He wanted big stories, celebrities, and even moments where wrestlers admitted it was all a show. Jerry thought that was the wrong path. He believed in keeping things simple. He used to say wrestling was like Shakespeare for the illiterate. It didn't need to be complicated. It just needed to be dramatic and easy to understand. Even though Jerry and Vince disagreed, Vince respected him. During Vince's steroid trial in the early 1990s, Jerry was ready to step in and run WWE if Vince went to prison. Later, WCW asked Jerry for advice when they were falling apart. He told them to cut their huge roster in half and go back to basics. Keep it simple, he said, because fans don't want to think too hard. They just want to feel entertained. WCW didn't listen, and within a year they were gone. Another part of Jerry's story is the way he paid wrestlers in his territory. Many wrestlers thought he was too cheap. Dave Meltzer, a well-known wrestling journalist, wrote that wrestlers resented Jerry because his payoffs were so low. Some even said he didn't pay talent much of anything. Jerry defended himself. He said working in Memphis was like going to school. Wrestlers were being trained in how to perform, how to tell stories, and how to make fans care. They weren't just earning money, they were learning the craft. Instead of paying for this education, they were actually being paid, even if it wasn't much. Many wrestlers later agreed with him. Dutch Mantell, a veteran who worked all over the world, said that working for Jerry taught him more about booking than anywhere else. Young wrestlers came to Memphis, learned the business, and then went on to bigger stages. To Jerry, the small pay was part of a larger deal. The truth is, Jerry was running his promotion during hard times. Vince McMahon's national expansion was crushing local territories. One by one, they went out of business. Jerry survived longer than most. The only reason it did was because he ran it tight. He didn't spend money he didn't have. He made choices that weren't popular, but kept the doors open. In the end, the very things people criticized him for were the reasons he lasted as long as he did. Jerry also built a unique relationship with Vince McMahon during those years. Memphis became a kind of training ground for WWE. Young wrestlers could learn there before moving up. It gave Jerry's territory value and kept it alive. Looking back, Jerry's later years in wrestling tell the story of a man caught between two worlds. He was one of the last defenders of the old traditions. He believed in kayfabe, in keeping wrestling real for the fans. He believed in simple stories and emotional rivalries. But he was living in a time when wrestling was becoming louder, flashier, and more about spectacle than sport. His fight with Jeff over TNA showed the gap between generations. His anger at the curtain call showed his loyalty to the old rules. His reputation as a tough promoter showed both the criticism and the survival skills that kept him in business. Through it all, Jerry never stopped believing in his vision. He saw wrestling as a form of drama that anyone could enjoy, as long as it was honest and simple. He stayed true to that belief, even as the world around him changed. For some, he was outdated. For others, he was timeless. But no one could deny that Jerry Jarrett left a mark on wrestling that is still felt to this day. Jerry Jarrett's life in wrestling was full of wins, losses, and hard choices. He started as a young man with big ideas and ended up shaping the way wrestling looked for generations. He proved that stories and emotions matter more than anything, that television could be just as important as the live show. He was not perfect, and many people disagreed with him along the way. Some said he paid too little, others said he held too tightly to the old ways. But no one could deny that he loved the business and gave everything he had to it. He discovered stars, built moments that fans still talk about, and kept his territory alive long after others were gone. Even in the toughest times, even when he was at odds with his own son, Jerry Jarrett stayed true to his vision of wrestling. In the end, his story is bigger than wins and losses. It is about holding on to what you believe in, even when the world is changing around you. It is about building something with your own hands and leaving a mark that will not be forgotten. Jerry Jarrett was more than a promoter. He was a storyteller, a survivor, and a builder of dreams. Wrestling today still carries pieces of his influence. Whether fans realize it or not, his legacy will always live on in the ring. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about wrestling's history and the people who built it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss the next one.